what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, well, X, I think I'm doing it. I'm making movies. He goes, no. But what do you want to do with your career?
In terms of getting producers on board, now being an action filmmaker, how hard was that? How easy?
So, I mean, I was lucky enough that like what I did is I spent like a few years while I was directing horror movies, producing action films. And so what I did is I was working within the action realm as like a producer of one of like 30 producers on a film, or, you know, whatever. Like I was on set and I was working with producers. And then what happened was I then slotted in for like a lower budget action movie for the first one that I did. That was the one I did with like DMX and Johnny Mester, Beyond the Law, Steven Seagal. And that one was my first action movie, and I was able to use the action sequences of that to show that I could do action. So that was like my first, attempt at action. And what I did is I cut together an action reel, which was just like the action sequences from that, as well as like some action sequences from the horror movies that I had done before. Because, if you take each horror movie I do, there's maybe like, somebody gets into like a fight in each thing. Like there's little pieces where there's some things that are action based. You cut that all together and then I'm like, hey, look, I can do action. So I didn't really get much pushback. People believed that I could do it. Based on like showing that, but I was blessed to be able to have that first opportunity to do an action movie. And that was just because I slotted in with the company after producing a few movies for them. Like they're like, hey, who's going to direct this action movie? Can you do it? And I was like, oh, great. And then from there, I used that to get action work.
How do you feel about being an action director at this stage in your career?
I love it. I think it's great. I mean, obviously I'm covered in horror tattoos. Like, I've got like a
nice.
Freddy, I got Chucky. By the way, the Chucky TV show is great. You should watch it. I'm super into to horror movies, but I've really enjoyed like playing in the action world. And I've just really enjoyed making movies that I think are fun. And I've had fun doing it. So I don't really look at it any different. If I'm being honest, I felt like I was kind of a little burnt out in doing horror just because like I didn't really know how I could do anything new from what I had already done. I kind of touched down on like every subgenre of horror at that point. And so I was like, okay, well, let me try something new. So like I made a kids movie, which was like that animated kids film I did with my dad. And then I was like, okay, well, let me try action. So I started like kind of shifting genres anyway. I kind of wanted to move around doing that. And really, I mean, it's been kind of a longer time coming than I would expect, just because like, I remember back when I did Bethany, I was talking about how I was wanting to kind of start to move away from horror. And I think I even said in one interview, I was like, this is going to be my last horror movie. But I eventually maybe I would definitely go back to doing horror. Like I enjoy the genre, but I like being able to have like a budget to actually do the things I want. A lot of the horror of what I experienced was, finding creative ways to pull off things that were beyond the budget. And it's we still do that, but I still am able to, if I want to have a car explode in the movie and it's in the script, we actually can explode a car. If it's a horror movie, I got to figure out a way to shoot the car explosion without it happening. At least in my experience. I'm sure people have had other experiences, but I wasn't really getting budgets in horror. And I feel like, horror, there's like only a few companies that are making like bigger budget horror movies, and those companies were not hiring me. So I was like, okay, well, I've done what I can at this. I got to find a different way into the next level. And that's what I kind of structured a plan of how to get to the next level as a filmmaker, and that was going through action. And I really have, I've always loved the genre when I watched the movies when I was a kid growing up, as well as just in general. And I kind of think that it's been like a fun journey inside of it.
And how can you expand within the action genre? What are the subgenres of action films?
Oh, I mean, you have like action thriller, you have like, just pure action. But for me, like how you expand is you just get bigger talent. Like the bigger the talent, the bigger the budget of the movie, the bigger the names that are involved, the more stuff you can pull off inside the genre. My ultimate goal is to get to a level of doing like really expansive thrillers that have really good casts, because then I can kind of have like action and horror in something with like a drama element. But I really just kind of more so just enjoy doing stuff that like is like, I like the stories on the films that I'm making. So it's just like interesting stories, as well as like being able to work with interesting, people. I've really been blessed to be able to work with really cool casts.
Do you feel that action films, there's more room for a script that has, a full arc, whereas with horror, we all pretty much know at some point what's going to happen with each character?
Well, no, not necessarily. I think creativity within the confines of anything can exist. So it's the same within action or horror. You can pretty much be as creative as you want within that, and you can kind of have different arcs and bigger arcs within both genres. I don't think it's as necessarily confined to one genre. I mean, I know like people like to confine things to like boxes in our business, but I kind of like to float outside of the box and kind of like, go, hey, what's in this one? Okay, all right, what's in this box? Like I like to move around instead of just sticking in the specific area. And it actually reminds me, so when I first met DMX, DMX, I was talking to him, and he looked at me, and the very first time I'm meeting him, and he goes, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, "Well, X, I think I'm doing it. I'm making movies." He goes, "No. But what do you want to do with your career?" And I go, "Well, I mean, I want to make like Marvel movies or something at some point." He goes, "No, not that. Who do you want to be?" And I said, well, I want to be like the next Steven Spielberg or Robert Rodriguez. And he goes, well, that's beautiful, dog, but how about you just be the first you? I said, damn. That was like our first conversation. I was like, shit. He just like dropped like a massive truth bomb on me. And it's okay that I did the voice impression, because he had heard me do it before he passed away. I told this story quite a bit around him. And he thought it was funny. But but I will say that that really resonated with me and stuck with me, because I feel like everybody in this business is trying to emulate somebody else. And really, like, you could take the good parts of different things and from other people's careers and create your own path. You don't have to follow somebody else's path, especially nowadays with, the accessibility of cameras and stuff like that. I mean, I made a movie on an iPhone, and now I've directed, a movie starring Bruce Willis and a movie starring Mel Gibson. Like that can happen. So I think, what people need to do is look at stuff as okay, not necessarily a path that you follow, but like an affirmation that what your dream is possible. And once you know your dream is possible, build your own path towards that dream.
Do people say to you, how did you get your start? Like, you're so young. Did you just came out of film school?
I said Red Bull and Cheerios. No, I'm joking.
Breakfast of Champions. Yeah.
I have no. What I've done, as a people have asked me like how I got my start, and I was like, I was straight out of film school. I was there for like a week in film school, and I was out of high school, and I had written this like script, and I was like, Robert Rodriguez only needed $7,000. That's all I need for my first movie, and I made that movie, and it's horrible. It's unwatchable. Nobody should ever see it. But I learned from that, but I, even before that, like, I was a kid watching movies. Like I grew up watching movies. I remember I would come home from school, my dad would like watch a movie with me and pause it, and he'd ask me like, okay, well, why was the camera moving like that? Like, why was this shot this way? So like, I was being asked all these questions and, drilled into my mind. And I was the kid who would get a book report, and I would make a short film about why I didn't want to do the book report, because I was like, this is, and I remember I almost got kicked out of school because I was failing chemistry, and my parents were like, this is horrible. I knew it was serious because it was the first time I had seen both parents in the same room at the same time since they got divorced. And I was like, oh shit, what's going on? And they're like, he's gonna flunk out of chemistry. And my mom's like, why would you not take chemistry seriously? And I'm like, I'm never gonna need chemistry when I'm making movies. So I feel like I had like a one-track mind, and I feel like that's just like the thing, like, when I was talking to Wes Craven before he passed away, Wes said that the people that make it in this business are just the ones that don't give up, and I feel like that's true to a degree. If you have a singular focus and you're focused on getting your project made, hell or high water, I don't care if I got to make it for $500, I'm going to go out there and make it. And then the next one I'll make for $1,000, and you just keep going and going and going. Those are the people that don't give up, and the people that build and grow and can learn from, okay, this is what didn't work on this one. Now the next one, it'll be better because I know that I made this mistake on this one. Like those are the people that are going to make it. And I think you hear about the guy who made some short film that went to Sundance and then they got a Marvel movie or this or that. And those exist for sure. And find your own path. But I think the people that really don't give up are the people that will succeed.
But when people say they want it so badly, whether they were raised in LA or they came from somewhere else, why do they give up?
That I don't know. I mean, it's, the maybe family, maybe pressures of money, maybe pressures of outside world. I can't directly say why, but I can say, for those people that are thinking of giving up, if you really, really want it bad, I beg you not to give up, because I would like to see your movie.
So when people say, wow, you just got your start and now you're directing Bruce Willis and Mel Gibson, you say?
Well, I've found that one funny because it feels like a whirlwind and it feels like I just got started for sure. But I also feel like I've been directing feature films since I was 18 years old. I'm 29. So it's really surreal to say that I'm an 11-year veteran before I'm 30. But we could shave off some years because maybe the first few were not professional movies, because I would also say, please don't watch them. So maybe I'd say, it's a whirlwind. It's everything. It's amazing because everything feels so fast and yet so slow. And I try to not focus on that type of stuff, and I try to just focus on making the best movie possible in what I'm doing, because I'm hoping that every time I make a movie, that will lead to the next one.